And day 3 or 4, not sure which, back to the Seine, with this really awesome building in front of us. It goes right over the road. Not a bad way to start the day. We're currently on our way out to the Montmartre area of Paris, which has the Sacre Coeur church, a brilliant white church on the hilltop. But on the way there, we've actually run into quite a few things. I forgot to record any video at the opera, Paris Opera, but at least I remember now. We're by a different church named Notre Dame in Paris. Very confusing. After walking uphill for a really long time, we've now reached the dreaded stairs. But on the plus side, should have a great view of Paris, especially from the dome. Predictably, this spot is quite popular, in part because of that view. Absolutely fantastic. You can see all the way into Paris, and looking up, Sacre Coeur as well. Fantastic. And here we are. Unlike many of the other churches we've seen so far in Paris, this one was built relatively recently, in the mid-20th century. Now, I can't remember the exact name of the chemical it's made out of, or chemical, the mineral it's made out of, calcium something. But the reason they chose that material is that it helps keep the building nice and white. When it rains, it bleaches. So, especially from a distance. Up close you can tell it's a little more worn down, but from a distance it looks pearly white. And we got views from the top. Downtown Paris, Tour Eiffel, Arc de Triomphe, and some pretty cool surroundings, actually. This way.
Sim, mas menos do que no primeiro dia.
People speaking Portuguese, I think. Wow. Here's the beautiful bell tower. Another view out into Paris. So, in addition to walking up those 292 steps, we also walked up a hill, which is why this panorama offers such great views of the city. And one last view up at Sacre Coeur. As we were walking back to the Opera building to get some shots of that, we stumbled upon the world famous Moulin Rouge, which is actually fits pretty well with the area. I was going to say it seems out of place, but there's actually similar buildings around. This is certainly the theater area. The French Opera, brought to you by Galaxy S22 series. And from the front, you can see famous composers up top: Beethoven, Mozart, Rossini. As with most opera houses, it's fairly ornate. Académie Nationale de Musique. I actually got to give Vienna credit. I think theirs is a little nicer looking, but it's still quite cool. It's you know, typically French, very garish. You know, having the gold everywhere. Yeah. Looks like a popular place to sit out on the steps. And there, rising up from the street ahead of us, is the Pantheon. When Louis XV commissioned it, it was intended to be a church, but then the revolution happened before it was finished, and the National Assembly decided to designate it a place to bury the revolutionaries who helped make the new republic possible. Oop. As we get closer, you'll notice that there are some striking similarities between the Pantheon and the Hotel des Invalides. The dome structure, large building, the fact it's a tomb. The two are really meant to mirror each other, to have the military and the civil greats buried in sort of similar honors. Oh, very bright sun. I apologize if that blinded anybody. In keeping with this trip's theme, it's still construction season in the Pantheon. Still very impressive building. Now famously, Léon Foucault used a pendulum in this building to demonstrate the Earth's movement around its axis. And this experiment was actually copied at the Columbus, Ohio Museum of Science and Industry when I was a kid. So they still have an impression of what that would have been like did the experiment. There are still obviously some parts of the Pantheon that point to its roots as a church. So, for instance, a picture of Christ up there. However, there are also a number of statues that attest to its place as the resting spot of many members of the revolution. So, statues to that effect, showing orators speaking for democracy and revolution. And a statue to the National Convention. So this is a name that will surely be known by most Americans, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So he was a famous political scientist, I guess you'd call him, philosopher. And he had the idea of the general will. That was his big thing you always learn about in U.S. textbooks. Across from Rousseau is Voltaire. He's a political satirist and wrote one of my favorite books, Candide. I mean, one of my favorites, but a book I like quite a bit. And in here, among others, is Lazare Carnot. Revolutionary figure as part of the Directory during the French Revolution. And directly next door are two of the greatest authors in history, in my opinion. Victor Hugo wrote Les Miserables, Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo. I believe Hugo was interred in here first, and then in the early 2000s actually, Dumas was disinterred from wherever he was and laid to rest here. His contributions to French literature were finally acknowledged. Looks like they have some space in here for others as well when that comes, but at the moment there are only 5 women interred here. One of them, Marie Curie, and her husband as well. So I guess her maiden name was Sklodowska, that's my guess. In the most recent edition, Josephine Baker. Her remains aren't actually here, just soil from her burial site elsewhere. Well, that was quite a cool exhibit. The building itself, I mean, it looks a lot like a church, but you know, it's meant to be a massive cathedral, so architecturally interesting. And then, of course, just seeing the crypt, you know, and seeing all those incredibly influential Frenchmen who, I mean, influential not only in France but also abroad. I mean, think Voltaire, Rousseau, those guys had a big impact on, you know, my home country, America, and the political thought there. So, yeah, certainly if you're in Paris, I think you have to check it out. I quite enjoyed it. Apparently, you got the police blockade of this bridge. It's normal stuff in France. So this whole area is blocked off. I don't know what the hell's going on. They're still allowing people, if you have a reservation, into the conciergerie. So I doubt it's a safety threat. I don't know, maybe a protest? I can't figure it out. We're now on Pontinouf, probably the most famous bridge that leads to the island of Paris. It connects both sides of the river, so you can go all the way across. And it's at the far, I guess it'd be western tip of the island. There's Pontinouf from the bottom, and where the Seine splits down here. And we've now entered the main hall of Musée d'Orsay. And what a hall it is. Sorry, I almost tripped. This enormous structure was built as a train station to help travelers during the World's Fair in 1900. Now it houses art from 1848, the beginning of the Second Republic, to 1914, the beginning of the First World War. I mean, surely it can't be as tall as it looks, but from where I'm standing, this feels like just an enormous building. That was the Musée d'Orsay. Musée d'Orsay. I don't know how to say museum. It's like museo in Italian. When we're in Italy or Switzerland, I'm going to be much more useful in place names. French just sent me for a loop. In any case, if you have the museum pass, worth checking out. Got to see some Van Gogh. It's probably my favorite artist if I had to pick. And there's a cool polar bear sculpture. So, yeah. I'm not sure I'd seek it out if I didn't have the museum pass, but since I do, might as well. Now it's going to be a quick 30-minute walk to the Eiffel Tower. Maybe get a sandwich on the way. And then we'll see the best view in all the world, Paris from the top of the Eiffel Tower. We've made it through security. Now we stand at the foot of the behemoth, the Eiffel Tower. Sacre Coeur, way out there in the distance. Oh, yeah. Hotel des Invalides right there.
15 meters.
There's the Champ de Mars.
Now, I want you to find a gift. A gift from the United States government. The government.
And a great view of downtown Paris. Trail.
No, I just made it.
They was on the first floor, so it's like to do it. Other than that, it seems to be going well.
traverser la scène du Sénat. Now we are passing under the
There's the island of Paris again. And Pontinouf.
Et devant sous la gauche la cathédrale de Notre-Dame in front of Actuellement, les travaux pour protéger la structure de la cathédrale est partie. At the end of the 19th century, an exhibit cathedral is present aspect. And as you know, the spire that was 93 meters high and the roof were completely destroyed by fire in April 15 of 2019. Today, large repair work is undertaken in order to protect the